In 1912, 2,223 passengers boarded what was about to be the journey of a lifetime, the RMS Titanic. On April 14th, 1,517 of those passengers were dead after the ship hit an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean. The sinking of the Titanic shocked the world, its fame reflected in the famous 1997 movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, in hundreds of books and short stories, and, of course, in conspiracy theories. While it is overwhelmingly clear that a ship did sink on April 14th, the details surrounding the history are a bit fishy. Today I'll be breaking down two of the most famous theories, that the Titanic's sister ship, the Olympic, was sunk instead of the Titanic, and that J.P. Morgan, the famed business mogul, sunk the ship to get rid of his enemies. So we're clear that a ship sank, but maybe it wasn't the Titanic. The first famous theory is that the Olympic, the Titanic's older sister ship, was the real sunken vehicle. The Titanic's building company, the White Star Line, was commissioned to build 3 ships, built to a new level of size and luxury. The Britannic, the Titanic, and the Olympic were born. The Olympic was the first built of the trio, and its maiden voyage was viewed as a major success. It went unparalleled until its 5th trip in September 1911, sailing from Southampton, England to New York, when the Hawke, a military ship, crashed into the Olympic during a surprise turn. The Olympic, badly wounded, made it back to the port, and the White Star Line was held responsible for the incident. It later had to return to the shipping yard in Belfast for returns. Some conspirators claim that the company's newly built Titanic would actually take the name of the injured Olympic, and that the older ship would be repurposed as the Titanic, and eventually the true Olympic, under the secret name of the Titanic, would get into a minor accident that would lead to some insurance money for the White Star Line. Supposedly, this would benefit the building of a new ship, all while the old one lived on. The ships were identical in overall length and breadth. The website, The Titanic Switch Theory, Exposed, actually lists and explains 44 separate claims detailing how the switch occurred. So, it was really the Olympic that sunk, not the Titanic. The only thing that put a flaw in the genius plan? An approximated 200 to 400 foot wide iceberg. The second famous theory is that famed business mogul J.P. Morgan sunk the Titanic to kill his enemies. When the Titanic sank, Colonel Jacob Astor, the New York hotel and skyscraper builder, Benjamin Guggenheim, a mining machinery builder, and Isidore Straus, owner of Macy's, were all aboard the ship. On April 19th, following the crash, the Washington Post reported that J.P. Morgan, quote, had thought earlier in the year to return to America on the ill-fated Titanic, but decided to lengthen his stay abroad, end quote. Morgan undoubtedly had a lot of power. During an era of laissez-faire policy and relaxed government, he helped resolve the banking crisis of 1907, otherwise known as the Panic of 1907, when he and a group of bankers assembled a $10 million loan to the Trust Company of America, plus $35 million in loans to the New York Stock Exchange, which combined with $10 million from John D. Rockefeller and $25 million from the Treasury, stopping the panic. In 1902, Morgan's International Mercantile Marine Company bankrolled the White Star Line, which had built and operated the Titanic and the Olympic, among other ships, making it property of J.P. Morgan. Morgan was in Belfast on May 31st in 1911 to watch the Titanic's launch. According to conspirators from online conspiracy group QAnon, a pro-Trump website that also has had an obsession with the Illuminati and the CIA's supposed Operation Mockingbird, Morgan canceled his Titanic trip before the ship's April 10, 1912 departure from Southampton, England, in a last-minute move, and then arranged for the switch to sink the ship in order to get rid of his competitors. These conspiracy theories are nice insurance fraud stories, but their reasoning falls a little short. Corporate greed was not enough to sink the Titanic. Though similar, the Olympic and the Titanic were not identical in build. The Titanic's forward A-deck promenade addition was added less than 2 months before the Titanic was set to sail. The difference alone is enough evidence against the switch, but all one has to do is think a little harder if they want more reasoning. Why would the White Star make a renovation to the new ship so soon to setting sail if they were really trying to disguise it? Not to mention, hiding a secret for over a century is no easy feat. Following the sinking of the ship, there were 2 world wars, during which the importance of secrecy became especially prominent. With thousands of shipyard workers required to work on the ships, there's no way someone couldn't have slipped up. Another critical detail is that surviving pieces of the Olympic have the whole number 400 on it, and pieces from the Titanic shipwreck, such as 2 engine wrenches, have the Titanic's 401 on it. The Olympic, built first, had number 400, and the Titanic 401. The ship's numbers were virtually everywhere, in every piece or tool. For the shipyard workers to have switched every single piece between the ships is much too tedious and momentous to believe. Furthermore, Harland and Wolff, the Olympic's builders, were capable of fixing any damage to the ship, We know this because of their history in repairing ships. In 1907, the RMS Subic, a 12,000-ton liner with an overall length of 565 feet, was inbound for Liverpool when it ran into a cliff of rocks in a time of intense foggy weather. The bow of the ship was severely injured, and Harlan and Wolff used dynamite to blow off the old section and build a new one in its place. J. Kent Layton writes in his novel Conspiracies at Sea, quote, "If Harlan and Wolff could build a new bow for a ship that had suffered this sort of grief, constructing a segment that was greater than 1/3 of the ship's total length, and the ship sailed for another 34 years without incident, they were clearly capable of repairing any damage that the Olympic had sustained," end quote. Although Morgan was considered a robber baron of the time period, he also did not arrange for the sinking of the Titanic. According to John Strauss's 1999 biography, Morgan, American Financier, and Brad Maiten's 2008 book, Titanic's Last Secrets, Morgan had valid reasons for not going on the Titanic voyage like he had initially planned. He was working with New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art to ship an English and French art collection of his to their building. But in March, when a U.S. Customs officer who had assigned to inspect the artifacts in London surprisingly left for America, he had to stop shipments and plan a time to meet in the future. This meant he would not be attending the voyage, and he sent a telegram to the White Star Line's president in early spring to inform him. Another piece of the theory that doesn't line up is that Guggenheim, one of Morgan's supposed enemies, booked his spot on the ship on April 8th, after Morgan canceled, meaning his motives were not connected to that. QAnon conspirators are also a questionable source. According to the Washington Post, they, quote, dismiss press reports they do not like by claiming they are part of Operation Mockingbird, supposedly a continuation of a 1950s CIA program to distribute propaganda through the media, end quote. Overall, there's not enough evidence to back either of the prominent Titanic conspiracy theories. Time has proven again and again that the initial report of the Titanic sinking is correct, putting these conspirators on thin ice.